questions that you ask, everything is being recorded. You may view it again, you can play it for your parents. I certainly have a whole first year class coming in that isn't here who needs to see this. I have a group of people who are not just wind ensemble people who may want to see this. So it's archived at some point, as will both of these documents be. Are you with me? So literally everything we're doing tonight, except watching you ask a question, is going to be on here for your own edification. So if you don't understand what I said or you want to do it again, Mom and Dad, you need to see this. That's the purpose of that. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, then to just information. It's just information. Some of it is fairly hard and fast. Others of it is just sort of a guess. Just sort of a guess. I'm going to start with the first big guess. And right now that's the published cost of this trip. This is the published cost of this trip. As we'll find out as we go along, there's more information to it than just that. Are you with me? So starting on my sheet that does not say 2013 tour, the philosophy of this class. The class we're talking about is Global Multicultural 223 Tour with the Arts. It is an extension of the Wind Ensemble program next year, but it is not Wind Ensemble during May term. It is a Gen Ed class that you can repeat at Wartburg College 4 times, or more than 4 times, I guess, but you can repeat it multiple times, called Tour with the Arts. It's not specific. Right now, the Kammerstreicher and Castle Singers are registered for Tour with the Arts. Last year, when Wartburg Choir was registered for Tour with the Arts. So it doesn't say anything specifically about the fact that you went to Japan on your transcript. It just says Tour with the Arts. Are you with me? The philosophy of the class is that this Tour with the Arts class is first a culture class, second a band on tour. First and foremost a culture class, second a band on tour. All year long, the Wind Ensemble will be studying this culture. During the second semester, usually on Wednesdays, but this is negotiable. Second semester, Habit has it on Wednesdays. You don't bring your instruments to class, we just talk culture. And the assignment for the class is that every one of you will be in a small group and do a presentation on some part of that culture. It could be a city, it could be an activity, it could be some interesting part of the language or something else, but you will actually help teach the class. So in the spring semester, the winter semester, those of you who just went through Wind Ensemble, our rehearsals went from 5 a week to 4 a week. We still meet 5 times, but Wednesdays traditionally have just been a class day. So we have a whole lot of time before we get to Japan to study the culture, and then all we're going to do is do it. So sort of like the magic school bus, a whole lot of learning, and then go get on the bus and go see what it was we were learning about. Does that make sense? We could not possibly learn enough about the culture while we're doing it. We have to learn as much as we possibly can before we go. Second set there, requirements, there are 3. Musical. You must audition successfully into the Wartburg College Wind Ensemble in order to register for Tour with the Arts. I'll say that again. You must be able to pass the rigorous audition for the Wartburg College Wind Ensemble in order to be there in the Tour with the Arts class. Number 2, academic. Let's go down to academic next, because that's where my mind goes. You must be able to take the Tour with the Arts class during May term to be in the Wind Ensemble that year. That was not true this year. It was not true the year before that. Only in the international year is May term attached to Wind Ensemble for the year. This year, May term had nothing to do with Wind Ensemble. Tour did, but not May term. Does that make sense? So next year, it is an entire entire year commitment. You must be able to take Tour with the Arts next year to be in the Wind Ensemble. Well, can't I just play like the regular year and not go to Japan? The answer is what? No. The answer is no. So don't be fooled by, well, that's not normally how it works. That's normally how once every 3 years works. But most of you haven't been around enough times to see how once every 3 years works. So it's a unique year. And in between there is financial. You must be able to afford the trip in order to be a part of the Wind Ensemble. And you will sign a contract accepting that obligation on the second day of school. this tonight. Well, imagine the new students coming in fresh in the fall. That's part of why this recording is being made, so they can watch this literally in June, in July, in August, trying to make up their minds about what they'd like to do with this audition. You have a head start, not in terms of playing better than them necessarily, but in understanding all of this. On the second day of school, I'll give you one day to sort of say, I'm not quite sure, but on the second day, I'll give you a contract and ask you to sign it that says, I accept the financial obligation, and only on that second day then is the wind ensemble actually set for the year. Not until you sign that are you actually a member of the wind ensemble, even though the auditions are done and everything else is happening. So, let me run that again. In order to be in the wind ensemble next year, you must satisfy the audition requirement, just like it always is. In order to be able to be in the wind ensemble, you must accept the obligation of a May-term class, and in order to do that, you have to accept the financial obligation of the May-term class. Any questions about that? I hope that's real clear, but I've said it enough times that it makes sense to me. So think about those three things. Right now, will you find the example that says 2013 tour on it? This is, and I claim again, an example from the 2013 tour. So other than a demonstration, none of the dates are true, none of the costs are true, but this will give us all some indication of what's going on. The purpose of this form is to provide the students with an understanding of the financial obligations and responsibilities of the tour with the arts. Right now, go to the second page on the back. Notice that you're going to sign it and you're going to date it. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the first official contract you've ever signed in your life, but it is a legal and binding contract. That when you sign it, you have obliged yourself to its obligations. Are you with me? So again, all the more important that you're going to talk this through with your parents, because when you sign it, you can't get out of it, ladies and gentlemen. You can't get out of it. You've signed as an adult what you're going to do. So that first paragraph talks about that. Second paragraph, we're told when in 2013 we left. April 28th, we returned on May 20th. It's not quite a month. It's not quite a month. We can stretch it, actually 5 weeks if we wanted to. We could be gone all of tour week and all of May term, but we can't afford that. We can't afford that. One of the ways that I can adjust the cost, two of the ways that I can adjust the cost on an international tour is to limit the number of days, stretch like an accordion, more days or fewer days, and the number of homestays. A typical international tour will put us in at least 60% of the nights in homestays, up to, I think, the biggest was like 79% of the homestays, or 79% of the nights were in homestays. Because it just doesn't cost you anything to go into a home. So the travel agent and I sort of fudge those things here and there, trying to get the best bang for our buck in terms of length of the trip and in terms of the number of homestays. Here we go. Estimated cost of the trip. Again, this is a 2013 quote. Estimated cost of the sheet you'll have is going to be identical to this, except that the names and dates have been changed to protect the innocent. Are you with me? So it'll look just like this. Estimated cost of the trip to be billed to the student account. Right now it says about $6,000, or it would say about $6,000. Well, then where did this come up from? Then there are additional costs. There's insurance, a passport, some meals. We do not need a China visa because right now we're not going to China. So instantly $250 disappears, and you notice that now we're down to about $300. Therefore, here we are. Are you with me? So if we could transpose that there, that's sort of where that would come up with. The total estimated cost of the trip right now then is what? $6,300. The total estimated cost of the trip is $6,300. Notice the next paragraph is a payment schedule. There will be 5 payments due from you for this trip. They may or may not be exactly those same things, but notice that. If your parents want to know, so is it a lump sum payment? You certainly could pay in a lump sum, but it would be up front, not at the back end. You can't put off till the 5th payment and pay up front, because you're going to make a commitment as soon as you get started. So notice that the payment sort of increases until we're done making that payment. At some point, if you cancel And the only way to cancel is to drop the wind ensemble, remember, because of that obligation. If you decide you're not going to follow through with this, you not only drop the trip, you drop being a member of the wind ensemble, but you lose that money called a cancellation penalty. You don't get all your money back. You don't get all your money back. Ask me at any time where we are. Then there's an at, the cost is an estimate. You see the little at sign? This cost is an estimate. Will you read that? Will you read that paragraph quickly to yourself? And for those of you watching the tape, you will have a written copy of this available to you on the website as well. So you'll see what they're reading. About 10 more seconds to read that paragraph. If you're done with that one, read the next one. But I would draw your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to the second and third sentences. Second sentence starts with travel leaders. That's the name of our travel agent. Is doing and has always done the best possible job of keeping the trip as financially responsible to our needs as they possibly can. You will never go on a cheap trip at Wartburg College, but we will try desperately to keep the cost as low as we possibly can. Cheap and low are not the same thing. You don't want to go on a cheap trip, but you don't want to spend lots of money. Does that make sense? So the next sentence then, the one that's underlined, and I'll remind you of this many times. On every international tour, the final cost of the trip has been less than the beginning estimate. Wouldn't that be nice, like a month before, to say, ladies and gentlemen, our travel agent has now gotten this down to like $5,800. Wouldn't that be a great surprise? You've already planned for it, you've already borrowed the money, you've already done everything, and suddenly Santa Claus comes and says it's less than it really was. So you might ask, well then, why do you start high? Because that's the estimated cost of the trip. But the travel agent will continue literally, even after we take off for the first time, continuing to negotiate things. So you will spend that much money unless you get a surprise. But notice I've said, in every single case, they've been able to come in underneath that original estimate. Because right now it's just an estimate. We're a year out. How much is gas going to be next year at this time?
It's supposed to go up.
Well, it's always supposed to go up. You're right, it's supposed to go up. So then that estimate has to be, Mary, has to be high to account for that. And if gas is going to go up, then fuel is going to go up. The cost of living all over the world goes up. So it's an educated guesstimate, yes? And it has to be something, but we can't wait till the day before we go to say, oh yeah, here's the real cost of the trip. You have to know what it is now. Are you with me? Turn over to the back page. Here's where that contract really, the rubber hits the road. Read that paragraph briefly, quickly. It will say almost identically exactly the same thing. With my signature, I do hereby attest that I accept this responsibility. If you've never signed a contract before, you'll gulp a little bit before you do that, and you'll hopefully go over it with your financial advisor, whether that's your parent or your grandparent or your guardian or your banker or whoever. You'll have time to do this. Okay, so take both of these sheets with you, but take that one with you. You're welcome to share it with your parent, with your financial advisor, and say, Dr. Hancock says, it'll be something like this. The costs are irrelevant, but the indication of how that all works is there. Are you with me? So don't quote me about costs. This is just an idea about verbs. Let's go back to our original one. So finances, how much? There it is. Payment plan, it's on that other sheet. Contract from the beginning, it's on that other sheet. Penalties, it's on that other sheet. Passport, how many of you don't have a passport yet? If you think there's a chance at all that you're going to go on this trip, why not get one? They are good for 10 years. So if you don't need it now, the chances are sometime in your young life you're going to need this passport. So you're not wasting your money. It's a great document to have. It's a great document to have. And I would call it, even if this trip doesn't work, an investment in, I got a passport, I really want to go somewhere. Are you with me? I think I'm on my fifth one. why, Mary? Because you'll have to get your shoes off in order to count enough. Next one on my sheet, fundraising. Two separate categories, corporate fundraising and personal fundraising. When we travel, ladies and gentlemen, with the Wartburg band, Garrett's a tuba player. Theoretically, it costs more for him to put his tuba on the plane than it does for Sophia to put her clarinet on the plane. But that doesn't make, in my opinion, as the director of bands, that doesn't make Garrett's trip more expensive than Sophia's. Garrett's going to pay part of his corporate cost. Sophia's going to pay her part of the corporate cost. If there are 60 of us, you're going to pay 1/60th of the cost to get the group on the plane. Does that make sense? And I don't know whether you think that's fair, but that's the way that it is. The group gets on the plane, not some of us get on the plane. Regularly, I do my best job at trying to negotiate. What can we borrow? And when we go to Japan, we interact with public schools in almost every concert circumstance. If not, then we'll borrow from a public school. Those of you who just went on the Wind Ensemble tour, we took a huge trunk full of stuff with us. We cannot possibly afford to do that. Or it would cost us more than it would be worth to go. In Europe, sitting in a garage, sitting not in a garage anymore, sitting in a storage unit in Luxembourg, Germany, is a complete set of Adams timpani and an Adams bass drum, waiting for us to come back again 3 years from now. It was cheaper at one time to buy a set of timpani and a bass drum there than to continue to rent them over and over, or to take our own stuff. So they sit for 3 years, 6 years, unplayed, waiting for us to come back, and it's still cheaper to have them there. Still cheaper to have them there. So whenever possible, I'll negotiate. Can we not take a Barry sax? Can we not take tubas? That impacts you a little bit because you're used to playing a C tuba, and that messes things up, Garrett. But as long as you all understand from the beginning that we have funds that we have to raise to get us on the plane, as well as you have funds that you have to raise to get you on the plane. Does that make sense? When we went to China and Japan, this demonstration here of 2013, when we went to China and Japan, we estimated that the corporate costs for that trip were going to be $12,000. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. When we came home, we had expended barely more than $4,000. How did we save $8,000, Dr. Hancock? Many of you who travel, for instance, with the Wartburg Wind Ensemble, know that you don't really like wearing dress twos all the time. Right, Nathan? Yeah. See, I've been there too. But all over the world, ladies and gentlemen, all over the world, I have seen when I go to take my credit card to the charging place at the airport to pay our bill for all of our stuff that went through, more than once and multiple times, the carrier involved says, you know what? Those people are so well behaved. They look so nice. I didn't know American young people could be like that. There's no charge. There went $2,500. There went $3,000 right there. And all I can do is do the touchdown dance while I'm walking down the hill going, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it happened again. And the place I least expected it on this 2013 trip, out of all the trips, the place I least expected it was Xi'an, China, where the Terracotta Warriors were. The smallest airport we were in, still several million people living in that community, but the smallest airport, not the most unfriendly people, but the smallest looking airport, and I thought for sure we were going to pay. And the guy basically said what I just said. I had no idea that American young people could be like this. Please accept this gift from the People's Republic of China as no bill. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, on that trip, when we came home then, that extra, we hadn't quite raised $12,000, but anything above that money that we actually spent then was given to the students who earned it to help finish paying off their bill. $70 at a time, which is not lots of money, but it helped. Are you with me? I cannot tell you we're going to plan on that. We cannot plan on that. But our trip to Japan will be less than our trip to China. When we go to Japan, we will fly from probably Minneapolis nonstop to Tokyo. We'll fly from Tokyo nonstop to Minneapolis. When we flew to China and Japan, we flew from Chicago to Tokyo, Tokyo to Beijing, Beijing to Xi'an, Xi'an to Shanghai, Shanghai to Tokyo, Tokyo back to the States. That's a lot of times to get all that stuff on and off the airplane. So how much is it going to be this time? I don't know yet, but it's not going to be as much as it was to do all of those flights. So some of the places that we will work on corporate fundraising. Corporate meaning the bill that we have as a band to get us on the plane. Homecoming, toss an instrument. I hope it doesn't rain next year. I hope it doesn't rain because we just got hosed last year. Anyway, concert donations. If you've been to our concerts, you see those cans out there. We don't make lots of money, but every penny, if we make 60 cents, every one of the wind ensemble people gets a penny.
Yeah.
If we make $60, everybody got $1. If we make 600, everybody got $10. See how that sort of works? This weekend, we're doing a Tex-Mex meal to raise money for next year's tour. During next year, we'll do similar things during the year. Our largest corporate fundraiser has always been in the spring, a silent auction. Regularly, we have gotten some sort of local TV personality to come and MC the event in the chapel. We fill the chapel commons, the upper level of the chapel, the narthex, I guess, the entryway and the narthex, with all sorts of silent auction things. So you're going to schmooze silent auction things for mom and dad, and if dad's a woodworker, get him to make something. If mom's a knitter, get her to make something. If grandma's a quilter, get her to make something. Make some jam, make some something. I usually end up making some lamps, Barry Sachs lamps, metal clarinet lamps, trumpet lamps, you name it. Those are often the high price thing. And we can often come up with about $6,000 in one day. That's a lot.
That's one person.
Should be you, right, Mary?
Yeah.
No, that's only part of that corporate thing, because not 1 cent of that goes to you. Not 1 cent of that goes to that cost. But this cost is your cost, ladies and gentlemen. If I took that $12,000 and divided it by 60, it would be added to this. It would be added to that. Does that make sense? To get our instruments on the plane. It would be added to that. That's your cost for the class. Anything else we can come up with? Now, here's the big ticket item. Personal. See below. Because here's where you really have to be involved. Here's where you need to be involved. Here's where your involvement can sometimes indicate, I've been successful, I think I'm going to go, or, it's August 1st and I don't have any way of seeing $6,300. So here we go. A caveat in italics. Many of us come from small town rural America where, quote, everyone knows everyone. We don't all do that, but many of us do. What is your family? What is your neighbors? What is your church? What is your community willing to do to help make that happen for you? I've told you over and over, I'm not smarter than you, I'm just older than you. So here's some words of wisdom from kids who've been traveling since my second year. There's a list. I'm not going to read the list, I'm going to explain how I see that. Some of you how many of you went to the European trip when you were freshmen? Okay, so I've got 5 in the room who potentially could help augment this with I'm younger than you ideas, yes? So I'm going to give my ideas, jump in at any time and say this worked for me or this worked for me. I've not yet found anybody who says, well, I'm not going to tell them what I did because then they'll steal my idea. Okay, but we're all from different places, and I don't know that stealing my idea in a different town is not a problem. For instance, recitals is the first one. Many students have found that we all have some music we can do. So book the public library, for instance. Book the public library a couple of times during the summer. And take your trumpet in and just play some trumpet music. Play some piano music, sing a little bit, do some things that you do. And put a free will donation can out the door and explain at that recital what it is you're doing. You're not really playing for money. You just want people there so you can say, in the month of May, me, little hometown guy, gets to go to Japan for a month. Fred and Ethel's son, daughter, whatever, you all know them. These are going to be your church members. These are going to be your friends. These are going to be your grandparents. Small town will come out to support you. They don't really care whether you play well. So make a mistake. Play a trumpet solo without an accompaniment. They're going to think it's the coolest thing in the world because you're offering them something. But you also want something in return. You also want something in return. But it's not just a recital, it's an informative, why are you doing this, Garrett? I'm doing this because I have a once in a lifetime chance to go do this. I have a once in a lifetime chance to go do this. Don't you care enough about me to help send me there? Are you with me? And again, not that all of us are from small town, but all of us know people that I think would help with that. But offer something. Offer something. Call it a recital. Share a recital with somebody else. Split the money.